Hi, this is Yvonne Galusha, and I'm just talking about Visual Studio Chapter 6 assignment that is due Tuesday after spring break. So since we had class, I did update the assignment information with this help document and this cart application. So this, if you download, is a complete Visual Studio application, and there is a page that is included that shows you how you can make a web form using Bootstrap. So if you don't want to do this from scratch, you might take a look at that, and it will help you in terms of using appropriate Bootstrap. Here, this document was what I went over in class. I'll go ahead and open it. And this gives you the help to figure out where to put pieces of the code. So I know you're now just learning how to put these kind of applications together, and it's distributed. So remember, I talked about you need to start by making a modules folder and then putting two classes in it, the student class as well as the list class. And I gave you examples and said you just need to copy these once you've created those classes and modify them to whatever the bean is that your web application is focusing on. And then, of course, this is a list to manage that bean. So inside Visual Studio, you'll see here I have a models folder with those two classes according to my donation idea for my website. I called it a donation. Here I think I called it student, and then here student list, and there I called it a donation list. So then, to make these additional 2 pages work, of course you need to create 2 ASPX web forms, and those would be first to accept a donation. So it looks different if I were to display the application, but you know what mine looks like because you can see it out on my Azure web account. And this is the page donate.aspx that I'm suggesting that you download that complete application that I provided and look at the Bootstrap to help lay this out. To get full points, you need to have the label, and then right to the right of the label, the text box for entry. It doesn't look to the right here, and then further to the right is the required field validators. For this particular assignment, you don't have to have all those done, but you do need to have your code make sure the 2 email entries match. Okay, so that will, obviously you got to get 4 basically new things going here, where the 2 web forms also have an addition associated with them, the code behind the .cs files. So you create 4, but these get created automatically when you create the web forms, and then you create these regular classes and put them in the models folder. So far, just to repeat again, these 2 are to help you right there with those 2. And then I provided some help for how you do the code behind. So here, in my example, I'm doing a donation instead of student entry. But here is how you get the list head. And then down here is how you deal with building the output. Now granted, let me make sure you know where this goes. This is going to go in the code behind for donations. I'm talking about a donation's already been entered, and now you want to display it. Here on this web form, all we did was drag a grid view, and then we use the built-in auto format, and I don't remember which one I chose, but something like professional I think is the one I chose. and you format it that way. And then of course, you know, you can always go to source, and I gave you some help on that one day in terms of centering. So this code right here, getting the list head, and then it's very simple to add a new student. You would use adding a new student in the code behind for the donate page. So I have my donate. I'm not clicking on that because I'm not wanting to display the answer completely. But on this page, the code behind, you're going to expect to have two event handlers, right? One for the submit button, one for the clear entry. Then you should also have a method for page load, which just also clears everything out. So if you think about it, you probably have 4 methods in this code behind donate ASPX.cs. One for each of the event handlers, one for the page load, and then since the clear entry and the page load both clear out all these fields, you're going to want to put a separate clear fields method. And then this event handler and the page load just call the same method. So for the submit, your logic, of course, is to make sure your email addresses match, and then go ahead and take everything and create a new bean object, and then go ahead and add it to the list. So you have to have that bean class created, which is right here. Then you have to have the list class created. I went over this in class about getting the list head. And so here, this second page of this help document, this code is to be used in the code behind for donate ASPXCS and donations ASPX.cs. So first on this one, just a minute, I'm going to pause this a minute. I'll be right back with you. Sorry about that. I just had somebody interrupt me. I'm back. So what I was saying is, back here, this one, you're just going to create a new bean object and then add it to the list. So in this submit button event handler, that's where you're going to basically get the list head and then add a student to the list right there. When you invoke this, remember it ends up calling the method inside this student list. One of them, yours may not be student, of course. That was just my example. See here, get students. This is the one I went over in class, showing you how this either creates a new list or it gets the list head from session. I'm not going to re-talk about that, but you can always look at this more carefully since I went over it once in class. And then this method in the list is where it adds a new student. See, it's the new constructor is invoked. And so that ends up creating an instance of this class right there. And then it adds it to the list. Okay, so this part is needed in the donate ASPX.cs code behind. Now, on the donations, all you're doing here is building the data out from the list and attaching it, putting it in a data table, and then attaching the data table to the grid view. So this code down here is what is the example for the code behind in donations ASPX.cs. Now, when this web application runs on that page, remember that what happens is the user doesn't have to click anything. The donations just automatically populate when the page loads, which tells you you have to put this code in the page load method. So hopefully this helps you get started. If I were to run this locally, it's a little slow, so it might be better if I come out here on my browser and run the one that I have on Azure. It loads maybe a little faster here. Obviously my image, I have a slow internet connection on my farm, so I'm not going to wait for that image to load. Oh, finally it did. So remember, here is the donate class that we just talked about. Notice how it's next to each other, nice format. But if I were to minimize my browser like this, then it goes vertical. That is what yours is supposed to do. And that is accomplished with the Bootstrap. Now back to the functionality. I'll just grab some ones that I've messed with and submit it. Notice it gives feedback. Yours should also give feedback that a donation was accepted. If I clear the entry, and I can do another one. We'll pick a different one just to, it's not going to like it if I don't get a phone number, so I better add that. And that one was also accepted. Now we go to the second page. If I click donations, those two should automatically display without me having to click any button, which they did. So that is what yours needs to do for this assignment. And I hope you found this to be helpful. Thank you.